This show is part of OnePlace, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to the Roundup. We are diving into 10 essential stories today, covering everything from breakthrough medical warnings to the hidden psychology of our daily social interactions and modern health challenges.
Pink noise might actually be ruining your deep sleep.
A popular sugar substitute is linked to stroke risk.
Famous obedience experiments involved massive secret rule breaking.
Small groups help socially anxious people thrive digitally.
An 18-year-old questions attraction and future parenthood.
Fragile masculinity beliefs correlate with lower national happiness.
Depression makes the brain less efficient for cannabis users.
Knowing AI is involved destroys trust in social games.
Poor sleep fuels negative emotions in alcohol addiction recovery.
A new COVID variant is spreading quickly across America.
First, the sleep study.
Many of us use pink or white noise to drown out city sounds, but a new study in the journal Sleep suggests this might be backfiring. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania found that while environmental noise like traffic significantly reduces deep sleep, adding pink noise actually creates a different problem. It was associated with an average decrease of nearly 19 minutes in REM sleep. This is the stage crucial for memory and emotional regulation. Essentially, by trying to mask the city, you might be trading restorative deep sleep for a lack of REM, which leaves your brain architecture in a worse state than if you had just used simple foam earplugs.
The study was quite rigorous, using full polysomnography on participants in a controlled lab setting. They compared quiet nights against nights with intermittent traffic noise, pink noise, and earplugs. The results were clear. Foam earplugs recovered about 72% of the deep sleep lost to environmental noise. On the other hand, pink noise combined with traffic noise led to more time awake and lower sleep efficiency overall. It seems the brain treats the continuous broadband noise as another stimulus to process rather than a blanket of silence. If you are living in a noisy area, the data suggests you should ditch the sound machine and reach for the classic earplugs instead.
Next, a sweetener warning.
Erythritol is everywhere lately, from keto snacks to sugar-free sodas, but new research from the University of Colorado Boulder suggests it might not be as harmless as we thought. The study found that this sugar substitute can disrupt the cells lining the blood vessels in the brain. Specifically, it reduces their ability to relax and increases harmful oxidative stress. Even more concerning is that it appears to impair the body's ability to break down blood clots. These physiological changes create a perfect storm for increasing stroke risk. This follows a previous large-scale study of 4,000 people, which found that those with higher erythritol levels were much more likely to suffer heart attacks or strokes.
What makes this particularly tricky is that erythritol is a sugar alcohol that occurs naturally in some fruits and is generally recognized as safe by the FDA. It is popular because it has almost no calories and doesn't spike insulin, making it a go-to for weight management. However, the researchers exposed human brain blood vessel cells to levels of erythritol similar to what you would find in a single diet drink, and the negative effects were observable within just 3 hours. This suggests that even typical moderate consumption could be altering our vascular health in real time. It is a significant reminder that sugar-free does not automatically mean risk-free when it comes to long-term neurological and cardiovascular health.
Now, the Milgram tapes.
The Milgram obedience experiments are a cornerstone of psychology, supposedly proving that people will commit violence if ordered by an authority figure. However, a new analysis of the original audio tapes from the 1960s tells a much messier story. Researchers found that many participants who were supposedly obeying the rules were actually breaking them constantly. They weren't following the scientific protocol of the memory test. Instead, they were improvising or ignoring instructions while still administering shocks. This suggests that the laboratory wasn't a place of structured scientific legitimacy, but rather a scene of unauthorized violence where the participants weren't just passive followers of a system, but active, often chaotic, participants in a very broken process.
This reevaluation by David Kaposi and David Sumegi challenges the long-held belief that the lab coat gave the violence a sense of legitimacy. If the participants weren't actually following the science part of the experiment, the theory that they were just doing their job or following orders falls apart. The audio reveals a level of rule-breaking that was previously ignored in the official summaries. It suggests that the high rates of obedience might have been less about respecting authority and more about a breakdown of social norms within the room. This shifts our understanding of coercion entirely, implying that the participants were much more aware of the transgression they were committing than the original study ever admitted.
Moving to social anxiety.
For people with social anxiety, the traditional advice is often just to get out there, but new research suggests that the environment matters more than the quantity of interaction. A study published in Social, Psychological, and Personality Science found that socially anxious individuals actually experience more meaningful and playful interactions when they are in small groups or using digital channels. These settings provide a sense of control that larger in-person gatherings lack. When the environment feels manageable, the mental weight of monitoring oneself for negative reactions decreases. This allows the person to actually enjoy the connection, rather than just surviving it. It turns out that digital communication might be a vital comfort zone rather than a crutch.
The researchers followed over 150 adults and found that social anxiety doesn't mean a person doesn't want to connect. It just means the cost of connection is higher in certain settings. In small groups, the fear of being judged or ignored is significantly lower. This study is important because it moves away from the idea that more socializing is always better. Instead, it highlights that for those with high trait anxiety, finding the right niche can lead to genuine well-being and a sense of belonging. By focusing on quality and controllability, socially anxious people can thrive socially without the exhaustion that usually follows a large event. It is about finding the right platform for the personality.
Next, an advice column.
An 18-year-old university student recently reached out to Annalisa Barbieri with a deeply personal concern. They have never felt physically or sexually attracted to anyone. This realization came after moving to university and seeing peers engage in intimate relationships that felt completely alien. The student is worried that this lack of desire will prevent them from achieving their life goal of having children. They also mentioned being an anxious person who often feels out of place. The response from experts emphasizes that 18 is still very young and that this could be a matter of timing, or it could point toward an asexual orientation. Both are perfectly valid ways to exist, though the anxiety might be clouding the student's self-perception.
Psychotherapist Duncan Branley suggested that the student might be drawn to others in non-sexual ways that are just as meaningful. He noted that cultural or familial influences often narrow our definition of what an intimate relationship looks like. The transition to university is a massive life shift that can trigger intense self-scrutiny. The advice given was to focus on discovering who they are in this new landscape, without the pressure of labels. Regarding the desire for children, the experts noted that there are many paths to parenthood that don't require traditional romantic attraction. The core message was one of patience and self-compassion, reminding the student that not everyone experiences relationships in the same way or on the same timeline.
Now, national happiness trends.
A fascinating study in social science and medicine has linked precarious manhood beliefs to lower national happiness. This concept describes the idea that manhood is a social status that must be earned through constant demonstration of strength and dominance, and can be easily lost. Researchers analyzed data from the World Happiness Report across 62 countries and found that where these beliefs are strongest, national well-being suffers. It isn't just about happiness, though. These countries also tend to have lower GDPs, lower life expectancy, and higher perceptions of corruption. The pressure on men to constantly prove their masculinity seems to create a social environment of high anxiety and competition that negatively impacts the entire population, not just the men themselves.
The study suggests that when masculinity is viewed as fragile, it leads to increased risk-taking and aggression as men try to defend their status. This cultural stressor correlates with lower social support and less freedom to make life choices. Interestingly, the researchers found that these beliefs are often reinforced by traditional gender roles which associate being a real man with independence and dominance. When a society prioritizes these rigid standards, the collective health and generosity of the nation seem to decline. It highlights how deeply ingrained gender norms can shape the economic and social success of a country. Reducing the pressure of precarious manhood might actually be a key to improving overall national stability and life satisfaction.
Next, cannabis and depression.
We know that cannabis use and depression often go hand in hand, but new research is uncovering the biological why. A study from the University of Texas at Dallas found that when someone experiences depression symptoms alongside cannabis use, their brain networks become less efficient. Normally, cannabis use tends to increase overall connectivity in the brain's resting state. However, the presence of depression seems to weaken this effect, leading to a less integrated network. This is significant because the endocannabinoid system, which cannabis interacts with, is the same system responsible for mood regulation and stress response. When depression is in the mix, the brain's ability to communicate across different regions is compromised, potentially making both the addiction and the mood disorder harder to treat.
The researchers analyzed imaging data from nearly 400 adults and found that this interaction is unique. It isn't just that cannabis and depression each have their own effects, they actually interfere with each other at a structural level. This might explain why people who self-medicate with cannabis for depression often find their symptoms worsening over time. The brain's baseline communication, what it does when you aren't focused on a task, becomes fragmented. This lack of efficiency in the brain's reward and mood centers could be a major hurdle for recovery. Understanding these underlying mechanisms is a huge step toward developing more targeted therapies for people struggling with this common and difficult comorbidity between substance use and mental health.
Shifting to AI trust.
As AI becomes more integrated into our daily communication, a new study in PNAS Nexus reveals a major hurdle: trust. Researchers used classic economic games, like the ultimatum game, to see how people react when an AI makes decisions for a human partner. The results were stark. When people knew an AI was involved in proposing how to split money, they responded with significantly less fairness and cooperation. Trust essentially evaporated, leading to worse financial outcomes for everyone. However, there is a twist. When participants were unsure if an automated program was involved, they behaved normally. In fact, many people secretly used AI themselves to help make their own decisions, even while they judged others for doing the exact same thing.
This AI suspicion creates a strange social dynamic. We seem to be okay with using the technology as a personal tool, but we view it as a breach of social contract when others use it to mediate interactions with us. The study suggests that the human-like text generated by large language models makes them feel more invasive than older, simpler algorithms. Because these models can settle disputes or draft sensitive emails, they are taking an active role in shaping relationships. If the mere knowledge of AI involvement ruins cooperation, it could have massive implications for the future of online work and digital diplomacy. We are entering an era where transparency about AI might actually hinder our ability to work together effectively.
Now, sleep and addiction.
For those recovering from alcohol use disorder, sleep might be the most important factor in managing emotions. A study published in Drug and Alcohol Dependence found that poor sleep is directly linked to heightened negative emotions and specific changes in brain activity during recovery. Addiction is often a cycle of binging, withdrawal, and craving, and sleep issues seem to amplify the negative emotions felt during that withdrawal phase. Researchers at UCLA found that poor sleepers had significantly more trouble with emotional regulation and executive function, the mental skills needed to control impulses. By looking at brain scans, they saw that sleep disturbance actually alters how the brain processes rewards, making the path to sobriety much more difficult and emotionally taxing.
The study involved over 100 adults with alcohol use disorder, and the majority were classified as poor sleepers. These individuals reported much higher levels of craving and motivation to drink compared to those who slept well. This suggests that treating sleep problems isn't just a side issue, it should be a primary goal in addiction treatment. If a patient can't get restorative rest, their brain is essentially stuck in a state of high emotional reactivity and low impulse control. By focusing on improving sleep quality, clinicians might be able to give patients a much better chance at regulating their moods and resisting cravings. It is a practical, biological lever that could significantly improve long-term recovery outcomes for many people.
Finally, the cicada variant.
A new COVID-19 variant, nicknamed cicada, or BA 3.2, is currently spreading across the United States. While it has been circulating under the radar since late 2000-2004, it is now gaining traction. Doctors are noting that while there is no evidence yet that it causes more severe disease than previous strains, it is genetically quite different. It carries 70 to 75 mutations in its spike protein, which is the part of the virus that vaccines target. This means our current vaccines might not be as effective at preventing infection. It has already been detected in 29 states through wastewater monitoring, which remains one of our best early warning systems, even as clinical testing has declined since the height of the pandemic.
The rapid mutation of the virus is compared by experts to seeing old friends at a high school reunion. You might recognize them, but the changes in appearance make it take a little longer. Similarly, these genetic shifts make it harder for our immune systems to quickly identify and neutralize the virus. For high-risk patients, such as those with chronic lung disease or long COVID, this variant is a significant concern. The cicada nickname comes from its ability to emerge after a period of quiet circulation. While we aren't seeing a spike in hospitalizations yet, the sheer number of mutations suggests we need to stay vigilant about updated boosters and continued monitoring of wastewater to track where the virus is heading next.
That wraps up our briefing for today. Thank you for joining us for these essential updates. Be sure to follow the show for your next daily briefing on the stories that matter most.